An Epstein victim just exposed Ellen DeGeneres for recruiting women for powerful industry men. You know what? This is exactly what Katt Williams warned us about.
Forced to do things of sexual nature with him.
From the age of 16, 17.
They need to stand up and be completely transparent with what had happened and show accountability. And the people need to know my whole reason for doing this is to protect the next generation.
Everybody's not the same. So that's why when I said that, nobody came out and went, "That's not true. I'm on God's side." Like, none of them.
For years, Ellen DeGeneres seemed untouchable, the smiling face of daytime TV. Now her name started appearing in discussions around Jeffrey Epstein.
Could I tell you some stories about that cow? But anyway, good riddance to her. But she was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy files.
Yeah.
Release
So,
the Diddy files. Come on, Donald Trump. We want to know whose name.
So maybe she's hightailing out of there before all that is thrown at her as well. But what a bunch of hypocrites.
Now, this is something that I've touched on in a couple of videos. A lot of people didn't even know about Twitch. He was someone that came through Dancing with the Star. One of the dancing shows where he was a great dancer. He then started working with Ellen on the Ellen Show and then Ellen's Game Show. And he was a very much loved personality on television, very likable, amazing talent. And he did, end his own self. And a lot of people think, one, that it's because he was working with Ellen DeGeneres, someone who was actually awful to work with and maybe beat him down over time, or two,
that the Epstein files reveal Ellen DeGeneres as, and I'm quoting this directly from the posts, Hollywood's most prolific cannibal, that she consumed human flesh. People are sharing distorted images of her face, writing paragraphs about underground dystopias, calling her a vampire.
This shift made audiences look closer at Ellen's friendships, her Hollywood connections, and why so many powerful names stayed quiet. And once you hear it, you really can't unhear it.
So that image right there is the temple that's on Epstein Island. And then they're about to show what Ellen DeGeneres' set looks like on her show. And I'm telling you, it's freaking identical.
Right? It's a similar image to that, right?
No.
I know Jamie does.
What is it?
It's on the set of a famous talk show that's now not on anymore.
Oh, Ellen? Was that Ellen?
Yeah.
Danielle Bensky first met Epstein when she was 17 and was hired to give him a massage.
Liz Stein was a 21-year-old department store intern when she first met Ghislaine Maxwell, who introduced her to the late financier.
And Charlene Rochard was just 16 when Epstein's began and went on for 10 years, thought to be longer than any other survivor.
And this is the part people can't ignore anymore, because when you truly listen to the survivors, it stops feeling like some distant headline and starts becoming real. Girls as young as 16 and 17 were approached with what sounded like normal opportunities, modeling, massage work, connections, and money, and then slowly, step by step, it became something much darker. That's what multiple victims have described about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, a pattern of manipulation and control.
What's actually in the files. Ellen DeGeneres is named in the Epstein documents, and that part is real. Her name appears in the broader index of over 300 high-profile individuals that show up across the investigative materials. Flight logs, communications, third-party interviews, peripheral records. Potentially real stuff in these files is damning enough. There are genuine revelations in these documents about powerful people and what they did or didn't do.
And then this is where it starts linking back to everything we've been talking about. Because when Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon spoke out about Ellen DeGeneres, they weren't just joking around. They were pointing towards something darker behind that polished TV image.
Weird when you see, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She doesn't seem nice, but that people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced. People that are like that all the time, she doesn't seem nice. It's very forced.
They described an atmosphere where people felt intimidated backstage, where the friendly persona seemed forced, and where things just didn't feel right.
You're nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing. What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life, and it's like Abu Ghraib where they're hooked up to wires and they
dogs
have
around them.
Yeah, she's got dogs and hoods. If an intern's late, they have a hood on. I don't support that.
Now here's where it gets interesting. Because when you put that kind of behavior next to everything coming out about Jeffrey Epstein and how powerful figures operated in hidden networks, it starts making you question how deep these connections really go.
This, the only guy that saw Stephen Paddock alive, his name is Jesus Campos. He was a guard at Mandalay Bay. He got interviewed nowhere else. You know where he got interviewed in the beginning? Ellen.
Really?
Weird. And then they went on, if you could find that clip, they went on with a weird like diagram of how it happened, and Ellen's like showing the people how it happened. Not like an emotional, like how are you feeling, how are you holding up? It was a weird diagram of like, and then he went to the left and to the right. It was very strange to, look, what the hell's going on?
No one is saying this proves anything directly. But in a world where victims have already said Epstein didn't act alone, even small cracks in someone's image suddenly seem a lot bigger. And then this is where it goes even deeper, because when Joe Rogan sat down with a former intelligence officer and started breaking down the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation, the conversation shifted from "this is strange" to "this might have been a system."
What is your take on this whole Epstein thing? First of all, can we just agree? Look at that. So you sure she's 18?
So you're telling me that,
she does not look 18. She looks 16. Are you sure? You sure?
Man, what a show that is.
Yeah, what a show. So let me ask you this right off the bat.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to ask you. He didn't himself, right?
They weren't just talking about Epstein as one man committing crimes. They were talking about leverage, about powerful figures being placed in compromising situations and then controlled. And once you hear that, you start viewing names like Prince Andrew differently, because suddenly it's not just a scandal, it's potential blackmail.
There's no way I could be convinced that he offed himself.
No way.
So
he knew too much.
Yeah. And you know, it's astounding, but yeah, what a show. But you know, nobody's going to get to the bottom of anything.
But that's a crazy one. Like, they got him in the jail. The guards are somehow or another getting in trouble. So who knows what the guards are going to say? They might get excited.
Rogan also spoke about whether Epstein might still be alive or not.
It's fun.
Do you think he's alive? You think Epstein's alive?
I do not think so.
You don't?
No, I think they killed him. If I had to guess. There's too much circumstantial evidence that leads me to believe that it was an assassination. You know, I know a lot of people think that he committed suicide. A lot of very smart people that I know think he committed suicide. I'm like, there's too many convenient things. The cut wires, the security cameras rather not working. They weren't cut, right? They just stopped.
But it gets worse, because they even question the whole he took his own life story, pointing out missing footage, guards failing to do their job, and cameras shutting off at the exact wrong time. Even hardcore skeptics started saying this doesn't add up.
This guy he's arrested for to elites, and then you put him in jail.
Oh my God.
With that guy.
I thought that was the guy that fought Mike Tyson. Remember that dude who read that poem?
Bro, you
Remember
put him
him
in jail with that guy. All you have to do is get that guy cigarettes and steroids.
When you combine that with what victims have been saying for years, that Epstein wasn't acting alone, it paints a picture of something much bigger. A network where powerful figures weren't just involved, they were protected.
Probably didn't think it was ever going to get to the point where they were actually jailing him. You know, when they actually got, because remember, he had that deal where he was on work release, so he could just do whatever he wanted and fuck off for 16 hours a day. Then he had to check into the jail at night.
Yeah.
And who even knows what that means? He might have checked in and just went home again. And it seems like they had set something up for him to make it very easy for him to be incarcerated for what should be a pretty heinous crime. I mean, he was,
you would think,
with underage girls.
Connect that back to everything coming out around Hollywood. And this is where it gets uncomfortable again, because if Epstein really was gathering leverage on elites, and if entertainment figures were part of those same circles, then it opens the door to questions people don't even want to say out loud.
He was found guilty of 4 men, and they put him in a cell with Epstein. Look at the size of that fucking savage.
Big guy.
Giant fucking muscle-bound, steroided up dude, and they put him in a cell with Epstein, and Epstein got strangled.
Epstein might have been.
Not Sherlock Holmes, but I think there might be a connection there.
Epstein was probably trying to slurp him. I bet that dude was such a pervert, dude.
Well, if he didn't kill him, then somebody.
And then Joe Rogan brings in Kash Patel, and suddenly the Epstein story is not just about one monster anymore. Patel says people in the media helped shield Epstein because of his powerful connections. And that right there is the part that should make you pause.
Too, because I know it's on people's minds. Epstein, right? The reason people are pissed off about that is the same thing, right? 20 years ago, or whenever it was, 2006, 7, 8, Epstein gets his sweetheart plea deal, right?
Right.
After committing the most horrific crimes on planet Earth, right? I wasn't in power there. I wasn't in place there. I had, nothing to do with it. But people were rightfully pissed. I mean, this guy was committing the most grotesque acts you can against children. And the media spins up about it. Many in the media protected him. Why? Because of his relationships, who he knew, who his bankers were, who his colleagues were, who was on the island and stuff like that. Some pretty powerful human beings.
He never says Ellen by name, but let's be real, Ellen was media. She was one of the most protected, powerful, and untouchable faces on television. So when people hear that media figures helped keep Epstein covered up, they start looking at names like hers much more closely, not as proof, but as part of a larger pattern. And in a story like this, patterns are exactly what get people talking.
And so when you peel back the layer, and then what happened? The Trump administration, the last go round, decided, no, we're not going to let that go. We're going to investigate him, right? They charge him, they indict him, and he's awaiting trial. And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information, and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? But the problem is there's been like 15 years of people coming in and creating fictions about this that doesn't exist.
And this is where the conversation online starts getting intense. Because once the Epstein story broke open, people didn't just stop at him. They started looking at every powerful circle in Hollywood and asking who else had that kind of influence behind closed doors. And somehow names like Ellen DeGeneres and Sean Diddy Combs kept coming up in those discussions.
Into the relationship between Ellen DeGeneres and P. Diddy. Doing some character analysis.
She was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Her relationship with P. Diddy.
What time would you like me there?
I'll tell you later. Because, once you get there, the party really starts.
And even how her set was designed to look like Epstein Island.
You add moments like the party conversation with Diddy, the after-party talk, the tone, the vibe, again, nothing concrete. But in a post-Epstein world, people hear that differently. They start thinking about what happens after the cameras are off, who's in those rooms, and what kind of environment that really is.
I think Ellen's relationship with P. Diddy is what should be being questioned, because we know for a fact they knew each other, they were friends. She literally tweeted that she calls him Cuddle McSnuggle stuff, and you don't need to know why, in 2016, actually. Sorry. But I do think that she should be questioned specifically for this video of her talking about recruiting young children to be models. I don't know if it was a bit, I think she's joking, but it is just a really weird way to do this and really weird and uncomfortable thing.
Even the Margaret Cho situation adds to that perception. When someone says Ellen acted like they didn't recognize her despite a shared past, it feeds into this idea people already have that maybe there's something being hidden. Now that could just be personality, ego, or Hollywood behavior. But when people already have doubts, they start interpreting everything through that lens, and the
darker things around Ellen have to do with the people who have died that she knew very well. So there are two people around Ellen who passed away very abruptly, and some people think suspiciously. Her ex-girlfriend Anne Heche and Twitch, we all know, took his own life in 2022. But people speculate that these two people knew too much, and that is why they were taken out.
Camera situation, especially with Selena Gomez mentioning covering cameras in the dressing room, that's one of those moments that feels off. Even if it was just for show pranks, it still makes people uneasy because once privacy starts feeling blurred, people naturally start questioning intention.
And once again, I obviously think it's weird that he comes out and claims that him and Jeffrey cross paths at any point, because they literally look the same. They have the same face. They even looked more alike when they were younger. And it just perplexes me. Honestly, literally the same. That is also my beef with this, okay?
And please say hello now to Palm Beach Pete, who is standing by. Hi, Pete. Hey, Jimmy. I were to point at, let's say Jeffrey Epstein was still alive, and I were to point at him, and then I were to point at you. Those fingers would be pointing in totally different directions, right?
No, I'm the better looking guy.
So when people say Ellen should be investigated more, what they're really reacting to isn't one single piece of proof. It's this entire collection of moments, clips, stories, and connections that when put together create a sense that something isn't right. And in a world where Epstein already showed us how much can be hidden in plain sight, that feeling alone is enough to keep the conversation going.
Give me the double look, but now that I've gone viral, Jimmy, It's nonstop. They want to take pictures of me, my autograph. But as Palm Beach Pete, I'm not Epstein. I'm just Palm Beach Pete living my life.
No, Palm Beach.
Sorry, I'm just kind of not buying it. I don't even know if I think this is necessarily Jeffrey or if I think it's like some sort of distraction.
One survivor explained how it didn't even begin as misconduct. It started as a conversation, trust, and small favors, and then suddenly the tone changed.
3 survivors of Jeffrey Epstein have flown here to the UK to meet MPs today. They're calling on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Peter Mandelson to testify back in the US about their relationship with the convicted offender.
Charlene Rochard, Liz Stein and Danielle Bensky, who are all actually assaulted by Epstein, join us now in the studio before those important meetings today in Westminster.
Another described how Epstein used her mother's illness to control her, making her feel like he had the power to help or hurt depending on what she did. And that's the part that really hits, because this wasn't just physical misconduct, it was psychological. They were targeted, studied, and then broken down over time.
A lot of whiplash with Pam Bondi. You know, she said she had the files, and then she said that the files didn't exist, or that they did exist and they were on her desk, and then we didn't see them for quite some time. And then when we did see them, the redactions were protecting all the wrong people. Andrew's name was originally redacted, and Virginia Giuffre's name was there for everybody to see. And so I'm not sure why we are not seeing the level of accountability that we need to.
But it gets worse, because survivors have said this wasn't happening in isolation. These were gatherings, events, and places where multiple people were present. Not always small, sometimes large, which means there were others around, people who saw things, heard things, or at the very least knew something wasn't right. Yet for years, nothing happened.
Very young teenager. That's when I first started modeling and traveling, when I was 16. And during that time, I had met Jeffrey and was asked to go to his New York apartment. And then I was also with him in Florida and on the island as well.
And this is where the bigger conversation begins, linking back to Hollywood and media. When you hear officials admit that Epstein had powerful connections and that parts of his world were protected, it makes people question how far those connections really extended.
And Jeffrey Epstein, this was a lot of people that were involved in this whole trafficking ring. And there were so many things that were also happening besides not just us as well. And it's really important to know how this worked so that we can protect the next generation.
So when people bring up names like Ellen DeGeneres in these discussions, what they're really reacting to is that shift in awareness. This is where everything becomes real, because Maria Farmer's story shows exactly how Jeffrey Epstein operated.
First, Marina Lacerda was 14 when she met Jeffrey Epstein, a vulnerable girl from a broken home, an easy target for the offender. Years later, her testimony would help send him to jail. Marina says we're being lied to, and there are powerful men still out there with secrets that need to be exposed.
He groomed me every day, and, you know, I was just a part of his world.
I can't imagine what it's like to keep that secret from the world for so long, what that silence must do to you.
They thought they could silence us. They thought they could intimidate us. And it just didn't work. Sometimes people tell me that I should be scared. I'm like, no, I'm not. Should I be?
Who do you want to see questioned?
Should I start naming everybody?
She was just 14, vulnerable, struggling, and he didn't seem evil at first. He came across as kind, helpful, and interested. That's how recruiting works. Day by day, he built trust, then slowly pushed boundaries until she was trapped in a system she didn't fully understand.
And was like, don't do it. People are going to think you're crazy. You're going against all these rich, powerful people. And for once in my life, I really wanted to do something that I wanted to do. So I really made that big step, and I am proud of myself, and I have no regrets.
Can I ask, when did the abuse stop?
I was 17, and he had noticed that I was wearing makeup, and I was acting, I guess, my age. And he says, you know, you get old on me and you're not fun anymore, and you don't bring me girls, young girls anymore. Because I was already mature, but I started to mature even more. And I think that really turned Jeffrey off at that point, and he just no longer was really interested. And we just...
And the worst part, she says there were always other girls, other people around. A whole environment built on fear and control. And then you hear a survivor say, I really thought that I was going to end. And suddenly this isn't just a scandal anymore, it's something much darker.
I got such a fright. It was such a huge changing thing for me. And I suddenly realized I had to just be nice and be friendly, because I realized that I was in great danger.
And he's assaulting you, and the other women
And they
there.
were laughing. Yeah, they saw and they just laughed. So I was really, really petrified. And, it really changed me, the whole thing, going through this. And I just didn't know what to do. And I just really thought that I was going to die.
What Jeffrey Epstein did wasn't just misconduct, it was fear and control. Victims weren't just manipulated, they were made to feel completely powerless, like there was no escape.
He did offer me money to recruit girls for him, offered me $2,000 for any girl I'd bring, or $4,000 a month if I would stay there. But I didn't, because I didn't want to be around him. Well, I have nothing to hide, It's obviously been upsetting because it confuses people, because, obviously the man had terrible grip over my mind. It took me time to heal from the psychological, it was like invisible chains, is a good way of putting it. It was like I was handcuffed invisibly. And I'd never even told my family, I never told anyone about what happened with him until he died.
That's why their stories matter so much, because they reveal how deep the system really went.
I like that. The younger you look, the better it is. It turned very sexual, and it was straight away.
And when you hear survivors like Sarah Ransom speak, it hits on a completely different level. She described finally facing Ghislaine Maxwell in court after years of silence. And instead of closure, there was no remorse, no acknowledgement, nothing.
As a human being, she would have felt something. She would have at least acknowledged or looked, or but there was none of that. And that doesn't matter for me. The thing for me, the memory I'll take away from today that I will never forget until for the rest of my life, was hearing Ghislaine walk.
That moment should have felt like justice, but for her it was mixed with anger and emptiness. She made it clear this wasn't just about one man, Jeffrey Epstein, but a system that allowed this to continue for years.
I'm disappointed. I don't feel that Ghislaine took accountability and responsibility really for the victims. I think that was her addressing the victims was a bit of a sham, saying I'm sorry.
And even now, survivors feel like they've only received fragments of justice, while many questions still remain unanswered.
I was being raped every single day, sometimes for 3 times a day, to 3 times a day. When Ghislaine herself, by her own hand, forced me into Jeffrey Epstein's room to be, did she say I'm sorry? I've spent the last 17 years trying to get some form of justice.
Some believe late-night hosts avoided the topic because networks protect powerful people and fear lawsuits. Others point to Ellen's move to the UK, her ties to Diddy, and old clips that now feel different in hindsight.
You say she's not nice.
I can't explain it. It was just
an
really
energy?
weird. I ran into her like backstage. It was like an awkward thing, and like the producers were really scared. I was like, what's going on? They were like, that was not supposed to happen. We're gonna get in trouble. It's like so weird. She was like, hey. It was like, I was like, oh, hi.
Interesting.
Like, I was like, I'm so excited. And she was like,
Now, who leaves their multi-million-dollar mansion over in California to go to the UK? And some might argue that Ellen decided to leave because President Trump was taking office and he was basically anti all of her beliefs, being a homosexual woman, so she decided to leave. Or at least that's what she told everyone. But I think most of us know at this point in time that it wasn't the actual.
None of that proves criminal wrongdoing, but it does explain why suspicion around her keeps growing instead of fading.
All just a coincidence? Is all of that just a coincidence that she's in the files, that there were many allegations of her doing things to people that are not okay to do?
The fact that she moved to the UK, then she left the UK and is back in America, wants to play these political games, also doesn't make any sense. Didn't really have a career in the UK, that also doesn't make any sense. And now, since the Epstein files have been dropped, everybody is trying to make links, looking at the emails, interactions, relationships, everything when it comes to whoever's name dropped or not. And there are content of Ellen throwbacks going viral, but especially her interview production set.
Rumors around Ellen DeGeneres just won't go away, especially when her name keeps showing up in conversations tied to Jeffrey Epstein. Adam resurfaced disturbing tweets from Chrissy Teigen, and suddenly it feels like there's a darker side to Hollywood that people tried to ignore. No direct proof, sure, but the patterns, the connections, the silence, it all starts to seem suspicious.
Interview set of her daytime show is exactly a mirror copy, like for like, of a specific area on the Epstein Island. Also another video of her going viral where she's at an award show, she's running around and she's handing people, different slices of pizza and asking if you want one or not, calling out her celebrity friend, would you like one, would you not? That's got millions of views and people are looking at her again. She also had her own collection when it comes to the Wayfair collection of items. She had her own collection. We've now seen in emails via Woody Allen and Epstein's assistants that they literally were buying products from Wayfair, and so she's linked to that again as well.
At what point do we stop calling it a coincidence and start asking tougher questions? What do you think is really happening? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives.